My name is Adam, and I clean skulls for a living. That's the short version. That's what it says on the job listing anyway. Skull cleaner, preservation department, Paris. I saw it on a forum where people post about things like haunted tourism, abandoned castles, and the occasional cult internship. It wasn't on LinkedIn. The long version takes a little more explaining. I didn't grow up thinking I'd end up here, but looking back, it probably should have been obvious. I was always more interested in the past than the present. Not in a nostalgic way. Not the good old days, I mean the real past. Places where the walls are older than the language I'm speaking. Objects that outlast the people who made them. Stuff like that. I studied history at university. Graduated with a degree and a whole lot of student debt. The plan was to do something respectable. Teach, maybe. Or work in a museum if I got lucky. But I had a bad habit of drifting. It started in my freshman year, maybe earlier. I'd get stuck in the deep ends of the internet, reading strange threads at 3 a.m. about cursed houses, unmarked graves, the weird side of city planning, places that don't show up on maps. I joined the Paranormal Research Club halfway through my first year back, partly because someone handed me a flyer shaped like a coffin, and partly because I had nothing better to do on Thursday nights. The club wasn't exactly active. A handful of us met in the basement of the student union and shared links, watched low-budget documentaries, or printed out blurry photos of things we found online. Someone brought back a Ouija board once. Didn't work. Mostly it was just sitting around with people who liked the same kind of weird I did. Somewhere along the way, I stopped going to class as much and started reading more about things that didn't show up on exams. Bone churches in Eastern Europe. Archaeological sites that got shut down with no explanation. Occult symbols etched into public infrastructure. I wrote a final paper on the use of human remains in historical architecture and got a polite email from my professor that said, "Disturbing, but well-cited." After graduation, I applied for the usual jobs. Nothing stuck. No callbacks or interviews. I figured it was a common kind of suffering, considering the fact that my friends were finding it really hard to get a job too. The only thing that felt real was the forum, the one for haunted tourism jobs. It started as a joke, I think, but people posted real listings. Niche stuff. Graveyard security. Night shift museum watch. Personal assistant to an energy healer on a mountain in Norway. Then I saw the one for Paris. Skull cleaner. No description, no contact name, just an address, a time slot, and one instruction. Bring gloves. I booked the cheapest one-way flight I could find. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't really have anyone to tell. A few old classmates I hadn't messaged in a year. Some people from the club who still posted links once in a while. My parents assumed I was teaching overseas, and I didn't have the heart to correct them. Well, I showed up at the address, a side entrance near the edge of the city, and gave my name to a man in an orange vest who didn't look up from his clipboard. He pointed to a locked gate, buzzed it open. That was it. I was in. And now I live in Paris. My apartment is a 10-minute walk from the entrance, above a shuttered bakery that smells like stone and burnt sugar. My job is to keep the bones clean. Dust them, check for mold, report damage. I have a cart. I have a logbook. I have a brush set designed for marble restoration that I use on femurs. It's not what I planned, but makes sense. In its own way, it makes more sense than anything else I have done. I met Lena on my second week. Management said we'd be working together for the night shifts. They didn't ask. They just handed me a printed schedule and said, "Buddy system's not optional." Then they pointed toward the break room, where she was already sitting, eating her lunch. She stood up as soon as I walked in, like I was a teacher or a customer or something. She's short and always looks like she's just remembered something important. Big eyes, neat hair, coat too clean for the job. She shook my hand and introduced herself like she was applying for an interview. "I'm Lena. I'll be your assigned partner for the week. They said I should go over the safety points with you again." We sat at one of the folding tables, and she took out a notebook where she'd written everything in bullet points. She went over the rules in order. No phones in the tunnels unless it's a real emergency. Don't split up. Stay on the marked routes unless you're on a maintenance duty. Never enter the service shafts without calling it in. Don't answer if you hear someone calling your name from an unlit corridor. That one wasn't on the official rule sheet, but she said it like it was. She talked fast, like she was trying to get through a presentation. I nodded, and when she paused for breath, I asked her how long she'd been working here. She said it'd been 12 days, but she'd already memorized all the maps and protocols. I asked her why she took the job. She looked down at her notebook for a second and said, "It'll help me get into museums." Lena wants to be a museum guide. The real kind, and the big names of Paris, places with velvet ropes and white walls. But those jobs are hard to get, and she needed something with experience and a big name attached to it. Officially, we work for the city's historical preservation department, and this job counts. Unofficially, we clean up bones, fix broken signage, and make sure nothing too weird leaks into the tourist section. The Paris Catacombs are split into two parts. The first is the public section. That's the one people take photos in. The path with clean lights, safety rails, plaques in 3 languages, and a ticket booth upstairs. Lena works there during the day as a guide. She wears the uniform and leads small groups of tourists along the official path, giving them the history. How it used to be a dumping site for the plague. A city-large cemetery for the dead. Now, it's a history preservation site of sorts. Over 6 million skeletons moved underground by hand, arranged into walls and displays. A museum made out of bones. Everyone loves that line. The second part is what we get. The part's not open to the public. Technically, most of the catacombs are off limits to everyone, workers included. But that doesn't stop people from getting in. Urban explorers, YouTubers, sometimes locals looking for somewhere to drink. Sometimes we find candles. Sometimes graffiti. Sometimes bones that have been moved. When that happens, it's our job to clean it up or call it in. The tunnels, they're a maze. Old shafts, half-collapsed corridors, hidden chambers no one's mapped in 100 years. Sometimes, we're sent out just to check if a wall is still holding. Other times, we're given a task. Cleaning displays, fixing damage, replacing an old sign someone knocked over. I get the cleaning jobs. Lena handles the public-facing ones. But during night shifts, we go everywhere together. Lena's not good with the dark. She won't say it out loud, but she tenses up every time we turn off the main path. She carries 2 flashlights and taps one against her palm when she's nervous. She never forgets the checklist. She never breaks protocol. She asks if I heard something even when I didn't. She's not cut out for this place, but she's still here, and I respect that. I don't mind working with her. She's organized, careful, and easy to talk to once she relaxes. She's also one of the few near my age. Most of the other workers keep to themselves. A few barely talk at all. Nobody seems to stay long. We're on the schedule together almost every week now. Same shifts, same section, same rules. The deeper we go, the stranger it gets. But as long as we stick to the job, it's fine. That's what they keep telling us. Just stick to the job. And with any job comes its rules. There are a few you should know about if you're looking to survive this place. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to tell you about why there are strange rules in the first place. So about a month in, we were both taking off our usual shift. Lena got the call first. A clipped voicemail from someone who didn't leave a name. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with the same message. Mandatory briefing. Sublevel 2A. 6 p.m. Don't be late. Now, sublevel 2A wasn't on any of the maps Lena kept in her folder. We had to be buzzed in by a man who didn't say anything, just held the door and pointed. The hallway beyond was bare concrete. There weren't any signs or labels, just a faint noise from the overhead lights and the smell of bleach that didn't quite cover the damp. There were 6 of us in the room, 4 workers we didn't know, and the 2 of us. Everybody was real quiet. The people standing by the far wall wore matching black jackets and heavy-duty boots. There was an insignia on their jacket arm I'd never seen before. A book and a hammer stitched in gold thread. One of them walked over and shut off the light switch by the door. The hum cut out. The room dropped into that kind of quiet you only get underground.
We'll keep this short. You've been working above active ground. You need to understand what that means, he said.
He set a binder down on the table and opened it to the first page.
There's an old presence down here. Predators that are as smart as you and me. They use the tunnels to feed. They manipulate the layout, draw people in. Tourists, explorers, workers who forget protocol. If you hear something unusual, you don't investigate. You log it and leave. If someone wanders, you don't follow. You call it in. There are rules you're gonna have to follow if you want to stay here.
The officer beside him passed out printed sheets. The heading read, Preservation Department. Tier 3 protocols for handling the undead. Under that was a numbered list of rules I'd never seen before, and a word underlined in red. Vampires.
We'll go over each, but understand this first. These are not optional, he began. You follow them every time, and you certainly don't test them. Most of all, you don't wait to see what happens if you don't.
There was no slideshow, but they did give us a contact number. When the lights came back on, we were told to leave through the back door and to not speak to anyone about it. Nobody followed up after. We didn't know who they were. The patch wasn't from any agency either of us could find. The briefing wasn't on our schedule, and no one at the office mentioned it ever again. It was like it hadn't happened. But the rules stayed in our lockers, and we followed them. Lena and I didn't know what to make of it, or if we ever really even believed it all. But neither of us left the job that first month. A part of me wishes we did. Rule 1. The rules weren't posted anywhere public. You only got them after the briefing in that stiff paper handout. But once you had them, you started to notice how the older workers followed them without question. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone has uniforms. Ours just looked especially plain. Drab gray, no logos, high collar, and stiff cuts. They looked more like lab coats mixed with jumpsuits. Cleaned, pressed, boring. Lena's didn't even fit it right. The sleeves were too long and the pants bunched around her boots. Mine felt scratchy at the collar and made a weird swishing sound when I walked. But the inside seams were different. The first time I noticed them was in the locker room. I'd taken the jacket off and flipped it around while I was waiting for my shift to start. And that's when I saw it. A faint shine running along the inside stitching. At first I thought it was just the thread catching the light, but when I looked closer, I saw the threads weren't normal. They were metallic. Real metal, worked into the fabric in tight loops and angles. I asked one of the older guys, Gerald, I think, if his jacket had the same thing. He didn't even look up from lacing his boots, just nodded and said, "Silver weave. Keeps you safe." That was the whole explanation. Later, I looked at the hem of my pants and saw the same thing. Thin, almost invisible lines of silver thread stitched into the seams from ankle to waist. Every part of the uniform had it. Jacket, shirt, trousers, even the thin gloves they made us wear when going past the tourist routes. Silver, according to the rule sheet, scattered a vampire's vision. I didn't know what that meant at first. It sounded like something from a cheap TV show. But Lena explained it to me in a way that made more sense. She said the briefing mentioned it briefly, that to a vampire, a person wearing the uniform doesn't show up clearly. The silver threads break their focus. Your outline looks broken, like a flickering image or a badly loaded video. They would have a hard time locking onto you, and an even harder time aiming for you. I remember seeing something like that once online on Shop QVC. They were selling those holographic jackets that scramble CCTV cameras. To a person, looks just like a shiny coat. To the camera, it's a blur of light. This felt like that. The uniforms weren't mass-produced. They were made by the curators, the people who ran the deeper parts of the preservation department. We never saw them, just heard about them through the others. They sent the uniforms up once a month, always folded, always sealed. You weren't supposed to bring your own clothes down below. And if you had to change, you did it in the sealed room off the locker area, the one with the thick door and the full-length drain. Most of the older staff followed that part strictly. I saw one guy, Lewis, refuse to enter a tunnel because someone else forgot their jacket. He just stood at the mouth of the passage, arms crossed, until the other guy went back upstairs and came down again in full uniform. At the time, I thought they were being paranoid. And then a few weeks later, I saw something. Lena and we were in corridor B13, doing a late shift inspection after a group of urban explorers set off a motion sensor. The place was quiet. I was sweeping the floor for scattered trash just ahead of one of the old bone walls. The kind where they stacked skulls like bricks, neat and clean. Nothing had been touched, no sign of entry. I leaned in to adjust one of the marker flags they used to tag loose stones. And that's when I felt it. Someone was watching me. I didn't move right away. Just tilted my head, squinting into the sockets of one of the skulls. And in the gaps between the bones, just for a second, I saw something blink, and then it was gone. When I turned to tell Lena, she was already holding her flashlight like a weapon. She didn't ask what I saw. She just said, "You're wearing the full uniform, right?" I nodded to reassure her. Yeah, full gear." "Okay, then let's keep walking." We didn't talk about it again that night. Rule 2. Now, Rule 2 was something they told us to do even before the briefing with the weird men in black. It was to use the buddy system no matter where we went. Out of all the rules, this one seemed the most ordinary. Basic workplace safety. 2 people per shift. Stay in visual contact. Radio check every 15 minutes. Every job has a version of it, especially when there are dark spaces or steep drops. No one goes into the maintenance tunnels alone. Not even the veterans. Even the ones who barely talk to anyone, the quiet guys who've been here for years, always wait for their partner to suit up before heading down. If someone calls in sick, their partner gets reassigned.
No exceptions. If you show up without your assigned buddy, you get turned around at the locker room door. The tourist tunnels, they're different. They're clean, well lit, reinforced. There are cameras, guards, signage, and a small office with coffee and heat lamps. You can walk them without thinking. Lena knows every step by memory. She could give a tour with her eyes closed. But the tourist section only makes up a tiny part of the full structure. The rest, everything that isn't lit or labeled or on a brochure, is our job. That's the part where the walls sweat, where the floor dips and swells, where nothing echoes the way it should. They call them maintenance tunnels, but that's generous. Most of them were never meant to be walked through. Narrow mining veins, cross tunnels carved in the 1700s, hand-chiseled routes from when the city was still stacking bones by candlelight. You can't see the end of them. Some slant so steep you have to crawl. Others swell open into old chambers where no one knows who moved the bones or when. That's when the buddy system comes in, and where the head managers get on our case about it during the rare times the newcomers forget. But I didn't fully understand the importance of it until the night Lena and I got separated. It was supposed to be a routine cleanup. Someone, probably a private tour group, had broken into one of the deeper corridors and left trash behind. Food wrappers, wax residue, some broken bottles. Nothing serious. We'd done jobs like it before. I loaded the cleaning kit, Lena grabbed the flag markers, and we checked in at B sector gate around 11 p.m. The entry tunnel was normal. Damp, narrow, cold. Our boots echoed against the stone, and our flashlights lit the path just enough to follow the arrow tags mounted to the walls. We made it to the flagged corridor in about 20 minutes. A small pile of litter, some tipped-over bones, and an old LED lantern left behind by whoever came through. Easy job, right? I tapped it. Nothing. Behind me, I heard Lena swear softly. "Mine just went out," she said. I turned around. "You have backup?" "No, I thought you..." Then her voice cut out. All the torches in that section had been shut off too. The wall lamps that usually ran on low battery were completely dead. We stood in a narrow pocket of dark. No light except what barely glowed from my watch face. "Okay, stay still. I'll walk back toward you," she said. Her voice answered, a little further than I thought. "I'm already walking to you," she said. Then came the echo. I heard her voice again, but from the other side, further down the tunnel, like she'd already passed me somehow. It bounced strangely, like it was being played from a speaker somewhere else in the corridor. "Lena?" I called out. "Here," came the reply. "To the left?" I turned that way and followed. The path split into two. I took the left, still thinking I was going the right direction. My footfalls sounded louder than usual. I walked for what felt like a full minute, then hit a dead end. Just a wall of packed stone. No bones, no markings, nothing. I turned back. "Lena?" No response. I shouted louder, and still nothing. And then I heard her calling, faint, like from another room entirely. I couldn't tell if it was ahead or behind anymore. Later, Lena would tell me what she'd experienced when we briefly separated. Somewhere deeper down a connecting tunnel, Lena had stopped walking too. She'd smelled something, faint at first, then sharper. the smell of my cologne. And that's what made her think I'd gone the other way and she followed it. But the smell didn't stay the same. It changed slowly as she walked. From something warm and sharp to something sweet. Then it turned. Sickly sweet. Like flowers left too long in water, rotting under the sun. She stopped moving when the scent shifted, wrinkled her nose, took a step back. Then she called my name. Nothing. And that's when we both realized we'd gone the wrong way. I retraced my steps. She did the same. And we met back at the last place we'd both been. The pile of bottles and crumpled food wrappers, now even darker than before. We stood there without speaking for a moment, taking stock of each other to make sure nobody was hurt. Eventually, she turned her flashlight over and slapped it against her palm once. The light flickered on. Mine buzzed to life a few seconds later. We didn't say anything on the walk back, but I felt her shoulders brush mine when she walked, then she was shaking. At the security checkpoint, the guard asked how it went, and I told him it was fine, the cleanup was done. Lena didn't speak until we reached the locker room. She sat down on the bench across from mine and said, "The smell changed. I thought it was your cologne. And then I smelled this awful, rotting smell, like something was dying." I nodded. "Yeah, I thought I heard your voice calling out to me from the left. I walked right into a dead end, you weren't there." She looked at me and said, "They said the monsters use sound." I nodded again. "I think they use smell, too." And that was the first time we understood what the buddy system was really for. Down there, the senses don't work right. Sounds stretch and bounce. Smells drift in directions they shouldn't. The deeper you go, the more it feels like the place wants you separated. And something down there wants you to be alone. I made sure to always keep Lena close by after that. Rule 3 says to listen to the animals. It's a strange one. At first, it didn't make sense to me. The others made sense. Uniforms, partners, schedules, safety check-ins. But this one just said, listen to the animals. There wasn't even much explanation in the rulebook. A short note on the back of one of the pages, just a few lines. Animals in a space mean it's safe. Lena would say it under her breath sometimes when going on our rounds, and I'd tease her for it. Too many. This sort of rule was like age-old superstition, old worker advice. One of those things passed down without logic, like holding your breath past a graveyard or not stepping over certain thresholds. It'll feel like that until you start noticing the animals yourself. There were stray cats that wandered the upper levels of the catacombs, mostly in the tourist sections. You'd see them slipping through the gaps in the stone, tails up, vanishing between display walls without ever making a sound. Some of them had names. Lena kept a list in her notebook and liked to say hello when she spotted one. They always looked healthy, well-fed. Like the catacombs took care of them. Dogs showed up sometimes too. The older crew let them follow along during inspections. Nobody owned them, but they always came back. They never barked or growled, but they watched everything. Whenever we ran into one, it felt like a small gift. What can I say? I'm a dog person. Even when they showed up in odd places, like behind an old door or waiting behind a loose pile of bricks, we were glad to see them. Further in, we started seeing bats, usually in the deeper maintenance levels near the wide chambers with high ceilings. They didn't bother us. Lena didn't like them much, but she knew better than to complain. If bats were roosting there, it meant something important. The tunnel was still safe. I even saw a black and white crow once. It was perched high up on an old wooden cross, just looking at me. It squawked at me like it wanted something, and then it just flew off into the darkness. As long as the animals are near, you're not in the worst of it yet. That's the way it works down here. You can get lost, you can lose the map or your flashlight or your sense of direction, but if a cat brushes past your leg or a bat flaps overhead, you can take a breath and keep going. The animals won't stay where the vampires are. But it goes both ways. The week I finally understood the rule, I wasn't even on shift. I was in the break room upstairs. Just finished a tunnel pass with Lena, nothing out of the ordinary. I was halfway through a cup of coffee, sandwich in my hand, gear already put away. I was sitting with a group of other guys talking about tennis matches. And then the door opened hard, and someone came in crying. It was Jen, a new tour guide who'd started about a week after me. She was one of those people who always smiled, the type who brings her own flashlight even when she's not required to. She'd mentioned to me once that she wanted to become a preservation lead. She liked the quiet of the tunnels. She didn't say a word as she walked in, just stood by the door, shaking, and then leaned against the wall like her legs couldn't carry her anymore. One of the veterans, Bernard, I think, got up without asking and went over to her. A few of us came closer when she started crying. I listened as she finally started to talk, in short bursts between breaths. She said she'd found a cat down near one of the tourist exits, lying perfectly still in the center of a narrow passage, half hidden between two display walls. The body was intact, its eyes were wide open, and the fur was clean. Then she said it felt cold when she touched it. She said the cat felt empty, like all the life had been vacuumed out. And that's when she noticed the markings on the neck and the slow pooling of blood beneath it. Jen said she didn't stay there. She turned back the second she noticed something was wrong. But not before she saw it. Something dragging the cat's body away with a pale hand and long claws. She watched as the blood streaked across the floor, and then she ran. The veterans nodded and sat with her, and her supervisor asked why she hadn't been with her assigned partner. Lena rubbed her back as she cried. Later, I found the rule sheet again and reread that line. When an animal corpse appears, it means a vampire den is near. I started keeping treats in my pack after that, passing them out to any cat or dog I'd pass by in the tunnels. They seem to protect us somehow, and I now try to return the favor. Rule 4 is don't get bitten. Sounds obvious, right? You'd think it wouldn't need to be said. But in the catacombs, getting bitten doesn't mean what you think it means. You don't turn into a vampire. You don't rise again with fangs and a long coat. You turn into something else entirely. Something the older workers call a spawn. They don't talk about it much. I only knew the word because it was written in the last few pages of the emergency manual. A spawn is what's left after the vampires bite you and take what they need. It's not death, not quite. Your body keeps moving, but not under your control. Your thoughts go quiet. Your voice is gone. Your muscles stiffen, your mouth slackens, and your eyes stop seeing the way they used to. A spawn is a walking corpse with just enough brain left to follow commands. They don't speak, hesitate, but they suffer. They do what the vampires want them to do: chase, drag, guard. They're dangerous and have a deep-seated hatred for the humans who get to live in the light where they once stood. Most of the time you don't see them. The job avoids contact like the plague. But sometimes a spawn shows up after something goes wrong. One day a kid went missing. Oliver Jones, 7 years old, and last seen wearing a red jacket with a Toy Story character on it. It was during a larger tour group that shouldn't have been allowed in. Too many guests, not enough guides. We weren't supposed to exceed capacity, but it happens. A school group came through late, and the manager let them squeeze onto a guided route to avoid complaints. It was already packed when they started the walkthrough. Lena was on that shift during the day. I wasn't. I was in the back corridor, cataloging equipment in preparation for my night shift. But the news spread fast. A child had slipped away during the tour. 7 years old, red jacket. The group didn't notice until the end, when they lined up for the exit count and came up short by 1. Now, missing kids aren't common, believe it or not, but they're taken seriously. The bureau gets called. Areas locked down. Radio traffic increases. We're trained for it. But Lena didn't wait for orders. She went in on her own. Said she thought she saw the kid earlier, trailing behind the others. Said she might know where he wandered and would just be 5 minutes. She took her flashlight and a single-use map printout and entered the southern tunnel wing. Her radio cut out not long after. Well, I grabbed my gear and followed. Buddy system. It doesn't stop being important just because things go bad. The tunnel she entered was part of a newer maintenance stretch, built in the 1940s but never finished. It ran in straight lines, with narrow offshoots and sudden dead ends. The walls were uneven, and the ceilings sagged in places. It wasn't a place anyone was supposed to be alone. I moved slowly, calling her name every few feet. No answer. I followed the orange rope she'd unspooled behind her, a common trick we used when venturing off-route. One long rope, tied to a hook near the last known safe point. 15 minutes in, I heard something. I turned the corner and saw her. Lena was in the center of the corridor, flashlight still on, the beam aimed at the ceiling. Her legs were motionless. Her hand was twitching weakly. And crouched over her was something I didn't recognize right away. Looked human at first. Skinny, pale, hunched. But its jaw was open too wide. Its hands were planted on either side of her, and its head jerked toward her throat. I didn't think. I just raised the emergency sidearm from my belt and fired a single silver bullet. The round struck the spawn in the shoulder. It reeled back fast with a noise like metal scraping against wet stone. It bolted before I could fire again, scuttling into the dark and leaving behind a long smear of blackened blood on the tunnel floor. I dropped to my knees beside Lena. Her eyes were open, wet with tears, but she was breathing. I pulled up my sleeves and checked her neck and arms. No punctures. No bite. Her radio was smashed. Her gloves were gone, but she was alive. She held onto me, and I carried her out of the corridor. Later, we walked back up together when she came to her senses, following the rope the whole way. The bureau had already arrived. They took our statements, locked the tunnel entrance, told us to take the rest of the shift off. But the kid was never found. His parents went public, made the local news, then national. Photos of his red jacket appeared on every screen for 2 weeks. Search parties combed the tunnels. Rescue teams and dogs and emergency drones. They found nothing. Not even his shoes. Lena quit that month. She said goodbye to the team and left a note in her locker. And I didn't blame her. She was brave, smart, but something about that moment broke her trust in the place. And she never recovered from it. So I've been at this job 6 months now. I still keep the rule sheet in my locker. The paper's starting to curl at the corners, and the ink's fading in spots from where I folded it too many times. I don't need to read it anymore. I know every line by heart. But I like knowing it's there, just in case. Lena and I still talk, every now and then. I send her a picture of one of the tunnel cats, and she always gets a kick out of it. She says she misses the cats more than the actual job. But things are good, and she seems well. We're even meeting later this week for coffee. Last I heard, we both got promoted. Lena works at the National Museum now and gets to tour people around the way she always wanted to, vampires not included. As for myself, I'm not a cleaner anymore. A few weeks ago, I got promoted to surveyor. The title sounds important, but the work's about the same. Go deeper, document, report, repeat. The difference is, now I'm the one marking new routes, mapping shifts, logging minor anomalies. The parts of the catacombs that weren't on any blueprint now belong to me, at least for a little while. I spend most of my time in places where cell signals can't reach and the walls haven't been touched in decades. My new partner's name is Nathan. He's sharp, careful, and quiet in a good way. Turns out he graduated from the same school I did, just a few years after. History major, folklore minor. He knows what to look for. We've already found 3 unrecorded vaults and a hidden alcove nobody remembers building. The bones were stacked in a spiral, almost like a sundial. Some nights we hear things. Not often, but when we do, we follow the rules. The catacombs are old, older than the streets above them, older than most maps, most records, maybe older than Paris itself. They change. They hide things. They keep secrets. And I have learned to move through them very carefully. There's more to find down here, more than anyone's willing to admit. And I'm not done looking. Hey, huge thank you to all my patrons. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, there's a link in the description. I hope you enjoyed the story, and have a good night.